So this is just a standard simple little job for me, and my original thoughts when I started to make this video was I wanted to show you all the little obstacles and problems that you can expect to come up against on a job like this and how to get over them. But instead we happened to come upon an issue ourselves where we couldn't get the materials we needed, and we just so happened to stumble across what I believe to be the best bagged render ever invented. So let's get into it. We take our time and work methodically. The last thing you want is for one of these tiles to fall between the scaffolding and the house and smash the windowsill below. It's a tedious job, but it's quite nice working in the morning sun. The next job is to get all these battens off, and with a little bit of encouragement they fit in the skip nicely. That's Sierra Delta. He's actually my brother-in-law. Now, I taught him to plaster about 20 years ago when we used to work on the building sites together. A long time since then, and he works for himself now. But every now and then we team up and do little jobs together. He's one of my best mates. He's a lovely fella. He's got the worst temper of anybody I know. But as long as he's got a packet of smokes with him and he knows he's going to get plenty of money, he stays relatively happy. Jokes aside, he's a top lad. Look at the little face on him. Now, something to bear in mind is the tiles were originally waterproof, and we're replacing that with a render that will absorb moisture, so you need to make sure the house has a cavity. So underneath that over there, that was fine, but this one, what they've done is they've siliconed the lead to the bottom of the windowsill, and it doesn't like coming off that easy. It's in between the block. They've literally got it inside, so that's going to be a bit more interesting. We've got to get that out really. We want to get the bottom of the windowsills cleaned off because you'll be able to look up and see from below. So there's like a timber batten that goes across the bottom. We're going to take that off. But over there, where it goes into the front door, there's a bit of plasterboard nailed to the underside of it. So we've got to cut the plasterboard first. Come and have a look at this. Someone's boarded, and basically they've done this with not with Artex but with finishing plaster, but this is on the outside. Now when we rip that batten off, it's going to destroy the front of this, so we've got to get a nice straight line across here and then cut through. We're going to cut through that with a multi-tool so that this doesn't get damaged, and then we'll bring our stop bead down just a little bit lower. Right, this stuff is an absolute pain in the backside. All the silicone that is left on from where the old tiles used to be, trying to get that off, right, is an absolute nightmare. There's different stuff that you can put silicone ether on there and all sorts of stuff. What I've found is if you're gentle, don't dig in, take your time, use a dead sharp chisel. See, once you're in behind it, either way, you know, it comes off no problem. Once you get in behind it, you're away. Done. So we need to cut this a nice straight line across. So I've set a pole up here with a laser level. There's something else we've noticed. See where the window frame finishes here and the windowsill. We've got to run a stop bead down here, so it's a nice little finish to the bottom. We're going to run a stop bead down there, so it's a nice little finish there. And see how the windowsill runs past the edge of the window frame. So we'll bead that onto the top of the sill. But when you come over here, the sill's back behind the frame, and when you come to the other side of that window, it's out again there. Wouldn't really notice it so much when the tiles were on, but I think now it's just going to be a render. It's going to stand out, so I'm going to cut these sills so that they all match, so it just looks neat right around. I'm going to cut them flush with the window frame. Anyone with a keen eye will have noticed that the end caps for the windowsills are missing. We told the customer about this, and they're going to put some new ones on once we've finished. Sam cleaned up and I cut some beads, so now it's time to start applying the base coat. Now you've noticed we've put a big green tarp up. That's not because I'm worried about a seagull flying off of Sam. That's there because this house is south facing. What we don't want is the sun drying out the base coat render before it's had a chance to set. We've also put a blue tarp down on top of the scaffolding. And that's because this base coat, if it sticks to stuff, it can really stain it. So we've stuffed the tarp down between the house and the scaffolding to stop any little blobs falling down there, and obviously between the scaffolding planks as well. Now, there is a sheet on the driveway below, but we're doing everything we can to make sure that we don't drop it on the floor. Oh, and there's a little tip for you as well. Stuff your roller mesh onto a scaffolding tube, makes it easier to cut, and it keeps it out of the way. I'm using K-Ren's HP12 base coat. If you ask K-Ren Technical to go over Thermalite block, they recommend HBX, but it's an absolute nightmare to use. So I would recommend using HP12. It's more than adequate. I've done tests. Also, I'm not using K-Ren's own branded mesh, so they wouldn't guarantee this, but I personally guarantee all my jobs. So that's all the beads, base coat and mesh on. As you've seen, we're going to get these tarps up now, these sheets. We're going to leave this green tarp on. That's just going to do it, you know. I don't really want the sunlight beaming on it. I don't want it to dry out too fast. So that's just helping a little bit, keeping the direct sunlight off it. I'm going to lift this blue sheet up, brush everything down, clean everything down, and that's it for today. Very important, this bit. Make sure before you go right along and clean all the beads off. The front, wait there 1 second. Sam, give 1 sec. Right. Something very important before you go, make sure you clean all the front of your beads off. There's no base coat left on the front, and the tops. The top section here needs to be clean as well. It's such a little thing, but if you don't do it, when you scrape back, if you've got a little bit of base coat showing through the front, it completely ruins the job. So it's worth just spending the time and making sure that's done properly. That's it. Nice and clean. Sheet up to keep the sun off it, the majority of it. And we'll be back in the morning. And this is where life threw me a curveball. So the customer has specifically asked me, after looking at colour charts, for K-Rend York. That's the colour she wants by K-Rend. Now, the supplier that I use, where I buy all my bagged render from, they stock every single colour of K-Rend. They have it all in stock. So it never crossed my mind to phone up and check the night before, because there's literally thousands and thousands of bags there. But it just so happens the one day when I wanted York was the one day when they didn't have enough to sell me. It's always the way, isn't it? So we phoned round all other builders merchants nearby, and nowhere had York in stock. So I had two options. We can sit and twiddle our thumbs and wait for a couple of weeks, or we can see if we can get a colour match with a different brand. Unfortunately, the guy I was dealing with behind the counter at FS Trade, he was quite switched on, and he knew straight away that there's a very, very close match with a different brand. So we phoned the customer, we checked with her, sent her pictures, and she was happy to go with it. Now here's the thing. Each different manufacturer of bagged render comes with their own unique pros and cons, okay? So you've got the likes of K-Rend, you've got PRB, you've got Weber, Parex, there's all different brands of it, and each one has its own characteristics when you're applying it. Now, I've never used this brand before, so all I'm thinking now is, okay, what problems are we going to have next? Well, anyway, this is how it went. Whilst Sam, aka Sierra Delta, is mixing the render, I go round and with the back edge of my trowel I scrape across the walls. The reason I'm doing this is because once you've put the scratches in with a wire scratcher, it causes little bits of base coat to gather and leave like little balls of base coat rolled up. It's just little cruds off the scratcher. So you scrape all those off first because you don't want them to come through your top coat. Something that's always quite important to do is to go along with your trowel and scrape off all the little snots off the render. The last thing you want to do is start scraping and scrape through the colour and find just a tiny little ball of base coat sticking through, showing its ugly little face. So go all over the wall and scrape it all back first. Check that, mate. Check that, see that's right for you. stick a bag in there?
I wouldn't bother.
It's not going to take. How many bags in there?
6.
6, 7, 8, no, 5 in there.
It's not, we bought 8 up. We bought 9 altogether, there's 1 in the bag.
Yeah, so there's one of the bags, there's 3 there.
Oh, there's 3 there? Yeah. Oh yeah, there's one in the bag in there.
That's what I'm thinking. It's definitely going to take
6 at least, yeah. Yeah, alright. Fuck's sake.
He thought he'd mixed enough, but I know for a fact it isn't enough. It's going to take at least 7 bags, at least, no matter what. We're trying to make it so we don't have to mix any more, but you don't want to mix loads too much, so it's got to be 7 bags.
Do us a favour, mate.
And to be fair, it mixes absolutely lovely. So, compared to K-Pen up to now, it's quite nice. I mean, it seems very sticky. It should go on. It should go on lovely. Oh my God, it's beautiful. Where's this stuff been all my life? So my initial thoughts are, wow, this stuff actually sticks to the wall.
Looks like butter.
Well, it does say that's what it is. It's buttercream. So what you find with a lot of products is, the wetter you mix them, the thinner it goes on. If you want to build up thickness, then you need to mix the stuff thicker. But the thicker you mix it, the more it tends to curl off the wall and not stick to it when you're trying to apply it. This stuff is just great. It sticks straight away, no problem. It's absolutely lovely to use. That's it. I'm converted. We'll see what it's like, how it rolls off, and we'll see what it's like to scrape. But I think this is a lovely product. It's lovely to apply. Stuff is absolutely lovely to use. Here's one little tip for any scaffolders watching, especially my scaffolder Lucas. I want to push down on the bead. I always like to push down and fill out because you don't want air pockets in here. When you scrape back, you always get air pockets in here if you haven't filled them out properly. So the way to counteract that is to push down and fill the bead in first. But I can't because he's got the scaffolding set right underneath where I need to push down. It would have been nice to just be about 6 inches lower, and it makes it easier when you're putting this bell cast bead in, if you can actually see it, rather than to lie down, put your head on the scaffolding, because you want to sight along it, you know. Even though you put it in with a laser, because it kicks out the front, if there's any deviation in the back, when you push it back, it lifts the front up, because it's like an L shape. Does that make sense? Imagine like an L-shaped bracket and you push the back of it, it lifts the front up. So even though you put it in dead straight, you still want to look down it and make sure it's straight. And it's difficult when someone set the scaffolding so high. Two other great things about this product. It's got a massive colour range and it's slightly cheaper than all the competitors. Now, I won't keep you in suspense any longer. This product that I'm using, this beautiful stuff, is Eco Rend. Now I know what you're thinking as well, because it's exactly the same as what I was thinking. That colour looks a little bit dark. It looks a bit more like custard. Well, fortunately, it dries out and it goes a lot lighter when it dries. So we just carry on down the wall, working methodically. I'm doing this in 2 passes. I'm putting the first pass in, and within a minute or two I'm putting the second pass straight over the top. You don't want to give it a chance to get a skim built up on it, and that's the reason I'm plastering the shortest distance, going from right to left, so that I don't get a dry joint. Right, that's it. It's all on. It's flat, and the bit that we put on first, it's firm. We'll be rubbing this up in no time. So what's that took us to put on? About 40 minutes. So I think if we go off now for some dinner, then we should be scraping this back up 2 or 3 hours time, should be ready to go, which is flipping amazing. A lot better than 6 or 8 hours, isn't it? So, right, it's been 3.5 hours. They've come back now to scrape. So this is ideally when you want to hit it. You want to be able to put a fingernail mark in it, but not a finger mark in it. Does that make sense? So if I press it with my finger, nothing. If I stick it with my nail, I can still leave a little indentation. That's perfect to scrape when it's at that stage. Now, when this stuff dries out and it's fairly thick and it dries out quick because of the heat, you usually get little splits in it. It shrinks and splits, or you do with other products. This Eco Rend, there's not a single split in it anywhere. They look like cracks, but they're not cracks. They just split, and you have to push the material back together again. But this hasn't done it. This is absolutely spot on. So we'll scrape it now, clean up, and that should be us job done. Rather than just using a float, I prefer to use an eye-bar to scrape the render. I do this because it gets the job a lot flatter. If you just use the float, sometimes when the sun shines across it, it can look dishy and all out of shape. Eye bars come in different lengths, but I've took a few and cut some down to the lengths that I prefer to work with. And then if you get a really tricky section, you can use the float to get in awkward areas. Nearly there. Little tiny job this. So, can't complain, but we're getting closer. It's Friday. It's Friday. It's hot. I'm ready for a barbecue and chill out with the kids. As soon as we finish scraping, some guys like to brush the wall with a soft brush to get all the loose parts off. I prefer to blow it with a leaf blower. So we did that, and then we washed down all the little bits that are spilled over the edge of the sheet, just scrapings. We washed all those away, made sure we left the place nice and clean. Once that dried, you find that there's little bits that get stuck in tarmac when you're washing down. So then we use a leaf blower to blow all those last little remaining bits away and give the driveway one more wash down. And that's it, the job was finished. Now the colour still looked quite deep and dark, so after it had dried for a few days, I got the customer to send me a picture, and that's how it turned out. As I said earlier in the video, each different brand of render comes with its own unique pros and cons. And in my opinion, I haven't got time to go through them all now, but in my opinion, Eco Rend beats them all hands down. In fact, there's no cons with it. Applying monocouche render, or well, let's just clear a few things up here now. Some people call it scraped render, monocouche render, through coloured render. A lot of people in my area call it K-Rend. They think that render is called K-Rend. They don't know that K-Rend's the brand. But anyway, whatever you want to call it, in my opinion, Eco Rend is by far the best. Now, since doing that job, we've gone on and done a lot more jobs just using Eco Rend. And as of yet, I can't fault the product. So, hope that helps some of you guys that are getting started. See you on the next one.
We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future